Hey, everybody. Welcome to this holiday live stream that I hope will help you as you're trying to navigate your very difficult holiday season. And, you know, I appreciate everybody jumping in. Please tell me in the chat where you're from. And if you have any questions, let's start to tee those up. And I'm just going to move through those questions round robin. But I want to start off tonight by asking probably a pretty obvious question, but I believe it's one that's really important. And that is, do you really feel like having to deal with these holidays right now? And my guess is that you probably don't. So I remember this too. It's been 10 years since I lost my daughter, Zoe. And hey, Martin, welcome. It was 10 years ago since I lost my daughter, Zoe. And I remember approaching that first holiday season and honestly not wanting to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to be around anybody. I just wanted the month to go by as fast as possible. And I remembered it was a couple of weeks before Christmas. And I remembered that Zoe really liked Christmas. I mean, that was something she looked forward to. And I was watching this movie. Well, that's a replay of a movie called The Christmas Carol. I'm sure you've heard of it. Ebenezer Scrooge. And there's a scene towards the end of the movie that always seems to just, snap me out of the mindset that I have, especially if I'm stuck. And it was that, I'll try to keep Christmas all the year round. And for whatever reason, that particular day, that line in that play, in that movie, I can't remember what I was watching, but it just hit me. And I was upset. I started to cry. I was like, this was something that Zoe really looked forward to. And she really would be upset if I wasn't at least doing something. So I wasn't about to take out all of my Christmas decorations and set them up. But I did commit to going upstairs and grabbing my 4-foot tree and the box of decorations. And that was it. That's all I was going to do. And I set up the tree, plugged it in, lights came on. And when I opened the box of ornaments, I just lost it. I just sat on my couch and I probably cried for about 10 minutes. Mostly because I was missing Zoe, but even more so because I was looking at all of these ornaments in this box, and Zoe and her sister practically made almost all of the ornaments for our tree. And they had, over the years, they had made even more ornaments to the point where there was very little space on the tree to put the ornaments on. And it just kind of showed me that it was going to be okay, because Zoe she left a gift for me forever. Every Christmas since then, I've put a tree up, and every time I open up that box of ornaments, I don't get sad any longer. I just am grateful that I have that part of Zoe with me that I can carry forward. And so by the way, if you're just joining this live stream, welcome. I'm sure this time of the year is so very difficult for you, and I'm hoping I can answer your questions. And so I see a few more people have joined. And so, hey, Penny, welcome. I think you were on last year, Penny, too, which is cool. Hey, Chuck, appreciate you joining as well. And Paula, hey, welcome again. If you guys have your questions, please post them into the chat. I'd love to see what your questions you have about navigating the holiday season. And it's my goal with this live stream to just answer as best possible and to share with you some anecdotal ways that you can move through the holidays. And everybody approaches these holidays, especially after the loss of a loved one, very differently. Some of us, we get we just want to stay alone, isolated. We don't want to do anything. And by the way, there is no rule that you have to do anything. There's no rules that you have to do anything with somebody else, or even just getting through the day might be as much as you can do, and that's okay. So again, there's no one right way to navigate this path except for the way that works for you. And so I definitely want to try to help out and answer as many questions as I can from you. So Jeanette writes here that yeah, she wants to stay alone. I get that, Jeanette. I look, man, just a couple of months ago, it's not even quite 3 months, but I lost my mom a couple of months ago. And absolutely, it stirred up some emotions about just loss and grief. And there have been some days when I just, again, I don't want to do anything around the holidays. My mom was like a big Christmas person. She loved to set up the house and decorate, and my dad has not wanted to do any of that. And so it's been a little challenging to go over to their house during this season. Obviously, mom's not there, but the house is just like it was. And I'm not faulting my dad. I get it. My dad feels very similarly. He just doesn't want to deal with any of the Christmas stuff right now. And so, for you, Jeanette, if you want to stay alone, I get it. If you've received any invitations to potentially join others, and this goes for anybody that's listening on this, and I'm sure that a lot of us on this call here maybe feel the same way. If you feel like you do want to stay alone, just say yes in the chat for me, so I know that you guys are still with me here. But if you want to stay alone, I get it. If you are invited to go over to families and friends and you're not sure what to do about that, I'd like to offer a little process that you can kind of go through, filtering, if you will, to see if you're actually ready to go over to somebody's house or not. First and foremost, I think it is important to have a plan for the day. Even if you're going to spend the time by yourself, have a plan for yourself, whether that is to say, even if it's getting up in the morning, making yourself a little breakfast, coffee, whatever you do in the morning for your routine, having some lunch, having some dinner, maybe watching some TV or some movies that you feel like you want to watch. Even if you want to stay in bed all day, while I get it, I would always encourage you to try to find ways to get out of bed, put your feet on the floor, and go and honor yourself that day. It's not selfish, by the way, when you take care of yourself, no matter what the day of the year is. Whether it's a holiday or not, it's not selfish, because healing through grief is really hard. Surviving the holidays can be really hard. And so, but if you are invited to somebody's house or somebody's gathering and you're not sure if you want to go, there's a couple of ways you can approach that. The first is to have a plan so that if you're not going to go anywhere, no matter what, that you know what you're going to do. I think it's harder sometimes to not have that type of plan for the day, and then you get there and you don't go to your friends or families, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to sit here and cry all day. No judgment. I get it. I've been there. But I don't know if that is necessarily something that is going to be helpful for you on that day, because I think that there's ways that we can move through our grief, even on these holidays, as best possible. We don't have to spend them alone, even though we want to. And again, I'm not pressuring anybody to do anything they don't want to. But if you do want to go over to somebody's house, here's the way to kind of handle that situation, because a lot of times you might even feel like you do want to go, but then as the moment approaches for you to leave, you're like, I don't know, because I don't want to be stuck there. I don't want people asking me about my loved one. How am I doing? You look so strong. Some of the things that people say, you're worried about the comments that they're going to say to you. And it can feel really stressful. But you can actually manage the day in a way that actually takes care of you, where you feel like you've actually gone out of the house if you again want to go. Um, and if it helps to drive yourself versus go with other people, that way, if you just feel like you're there and you're just overwhelmed, you have the ability to say, "I appreciate this, but I appreciate seeing everybody, but I'm ready to go home." Look, after my daughter died, I think it probably took about 5 or 6 months for me to even go out with friends, let alone anything related to the holiday. You know, um, everybody else seems like everybody else around us is happy and cheerful, and here we are just, you know, practically ready to break down sometimes. But if you do decide to go, drive yourself, stay as long as you want to, not as long as somebody else wants you to be there. I'm sure people will encourage you to stay. Um, but if you really feel like it's overwhelming for you and that you actually feel like you've you've contributed by going and saying contributed to your own um, self-care, it's okay. It's okay to go home. There's no wrong answer for this. There's no, if you go for 15 minutes and be like, I'm good. Hey everybody, thank you, but I'm going to go now. That's okay too. If you stay for an hour, great. If you stay for two, great. There's no time frame on that. So for you, Jeanette, if you want to stay home, I get it. If you want to be alone, again, I totally get that. But if you are invited, I do invite you to also just try to go and just take care of yourself along the way. Keep checking in with yourself. If you have a friend or somebody that is really close to you that really understands how you're doing right now, maybe they can be your battle buddy, somebody that you can connect with and just talk to and say, hey, I'll go, but if I give you the signal, can we please leave? And if they have your back, you'll be able to do that. So I hope that helps, Jeanette. Again, I don't know if you have any plans to go out or not, but again, welcome everybody too who's joining. I appreciate you joining tonight. I hope I can answer your questions. I'm going to get to some more of these questions here. So Martin writes, last year I was still in shock over the death of his husband, and he sailed through the holidays. This year it's been very hard and heavy and emotional. Yeah, I just want to get through them without too much sorrow. And Martin, I appreciate you saying that, and I get that because these holidays, they are emotional even when people are here. They can be really difficult to navigate, especially when you're missing your significant other, your person, the one that you used to laugh and hang out with at other parties, holiday parties with. And so, but here's the thing that I'd like to also invite you to think about here is that even if you have to or feel like crying, like we all do with grief, even if you feel like you're crying more, it's okay. Humans are emotional beings. We use our emotions to process, and it's okay. I cried yesterday. I was talking to my sister, and I mentioned missing my mom, missing my daughter, and I had to stop on the call for a couple of seconds because I teared up, and I didn't want to suppress that. I wanted it to come. I wanted to get it out. And so it's okay if there is what you're feeling is what you're feeling. There's no rules for it. And hopefully you do have a good day. Hopefully you do get through it without so much sorrow. But if the sorrow comes in waves, it will pass. But I hope that helps a little bit, Martin. So Paula writes, my granddaughter Zoe, oh, that's okay, and died 4 days later due to a heart defect. Oh, I'm so sorry, Paula. I think you were on last year, and I think I remember you hearing that. And I know I remember you saying that last Christmas was really, really difficult. But I absolutely love reading the rest of this, is that this year Zoe's mom is pregnant. Congratulations to your daughter. Um, that's a gift. That's a heck of a gift. And by the way, if you don't know this, the name Zoe in Greek means life. And so I actually have it tattooed on my wrist here. I was on a train a few years ago when I was working in Boston, and a woman sat down next to me in the train, and she's looking at my arm, and she goes, "That doesn't spell swim." Anyway, I just thought you guys might like that. But I hope that this Christmas is better for you, Paula. And I do appreciate you being here tonight. And I'm sorry again for the loss of your granddaughter. But I think it's wonderful that you have a new life coming that should be loved, I'm sure, as much as possible too. So, and Jeanette said, I just want to walk in nature by myself. And you know what? That's a really good idea, Jeanette. When you get back to yourself, you get back to your nature. What is it that lights you up? And this is I'm really glad she said that, because this is so important. Last year when I did this, I was down in Florida. I'm back up in Maine now, and I live in a rural part of the state, and I'm surrounded by 5 acres of woods here on the property that I'm staying at. And I can't tell you how peaceful it is to go outside and just be able to kind of look around and just smell fresh air and be in the presence of those balsam trees that, you guys have smelled that balsam wood. It's very fragrant, and you smell that here in Maine. And so, but that's something that I connect with. And so for you, Jeanette, when you're out in the woods or however you get out in nature with yourself, that's great. Maybe that's a walk on the beach if you're near some water. Maybe it's a walk on a trail. Maybe it's just to enjoy being outside. And whatever that works for you, that works for you. And I love that. So it is, I'm going back to Paula here. She says, it's hard to balance the sadness of missing Zoe and the excitement about the new baby. Of course. And our whole family is getting together for a week in Florida. So I feel so conflicted with excitement. I'm glad you mentioned that, Paula, because feeling conflicted between the excitement and the sadness, you don't have to choose one or the other. I hope that helps some, because it is okay to still be thinking about your granddaughter, Zoe, and, to honor her memory, to to just feel what you need to feel in that regard. But it's okay to also be excited about the baby that's coming. And I'm sure that is weird fluctuation between, happiness and sadness. And I think what will probably happen is that you're always going to be honoring your granddaughter, Zoe, just like her mom will. But I can imagine this new baby is going to be loved just as much as anybody else in your family. So I do get that, and I'm sure that it's really hard. So Penny writes, this year is my second Christmas without my son, Michael. Last year I went to a family and I didn't cope at all. Yeah. This year, my husband and I are just being at home, and that's okay, Penny. I'm glad you've made that choice. There's nothing wrong, by the way, with being at home. There really isn't. I was actually, before I put my Christmas tree up that first Christmas, I was keeping myself busy by watching Christmas movies and just kind of keeping myself busy with some work. I hadn't started doing any coaching, speaking, or training yet. And so instead, I just focused on just navigating through those weekends. I was checking in with Zoe's friends. I was checking in with my kids who were older at the time. I was just checking in, because I felt like when I checked in on other people, it helped me as well. And again, you don't have to do what I did. And for you, Penny, if you just want to be at home with your husband, that's okay. I know your son Michael's going to be in your heart, and I hope that this Christmas is a little bit better for you as you get closer to Wednesday and then beyond that. So thank you for sharing that. And if you and your husband decide to go and do something on Christmas Day, just know that it's okay to do that just as much as it's okay for you to stay at home. So I hope that helps some. Um, Somebody on here, his name is Canceled. Hey, Eric, greetings from New York. It's been a while. I've been pulling through coping with the passing of my brother and dear friend. I have made new friends along the way to help me with, uh, making new friends. There's something that's really interesting, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Um, and You just continued right here. I'm ready for the new year of peace and healing. Anyways, how are you today? I'm doing well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is how I am actually coping with the holiday is I want to help somebody, help others. I want to hear what's going on. I want to potentially offer some stories and anecdotal ways that you can move through the holidays. I'm not a counselor, I'm a coach, and I help people to get back up and live beyond the loss of a loved one. Surviving the holidays is important, and surviving your grief, I believe, is important, but that's not where the journey ends. The journey does continue through a phase of feeling like you're getting back up. Like, for example, Penny writing, this is the second year without her son. Last year, there was no way she could even think about trying to navigate the holidays in an easy way. And she said she struggled with that day. But a year later, she's writing that, they're just gonna stay home, and that's okay. It's not, you know, celebrating as if nothing has happened in your life, that your life hasn't shifted. It's a little different. And so when you move out of survival mode, you actually start to have some better days and some better moments, even some better holidays. And by the way, there's no timeline for you to go, get back to yourself. It took me probably 2 or 3 years before I felt like I was back on level ground with my grief. Some people take longer, some people it's faster. It's your journey, it's your pace, and it's on your agenda, including navigating these holidays. And so I just want to get back to this statement, though, about making some new friends along the way. Um, I was thinking, I was just having a conversation today with one of my coaches and mentors, and I was just thinking that, geez, there's so many people that have come into my life since I lost my daughter that never knew her. And I obviously I obviously wish that she was here. And I know I can't change that as much as I want to turn the clock back and fix everything and try to help save her, if you will. I can't. And so I can't change what happened, but I can change what happens next. And that's kind of what happened along this journey. Is what happened next was that I was introduced to and have made several friends and acquaintances that have actually helped me as much as I've helped them through difficult situations. And I wouldn't have met them if Zoe was still here. The likelihood of me meeting them was probably pretty slim. And so I feel as though these are some of the gifts that are left behind after we lose our loved one, in the sense of that relationships can change. Some people that we love um, may not may not be around after we lose our loved one, if that makes sense, friends, family, or otherwise. But the door is open for new relationships to come in, and that happens a lot. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with someone, a few months, if not a couple of years after their loss, and oh my gosh, I have some new friends. We go on trips, we do things together, we do this, we do that. I'm getting involved in this new hobby or interest. I'm traveling more, whatever it may be, and that is good. That is part of the journey of grief, is to again navigate from the survival to getting back up and kind of getting back to yourself, getting back to your nature, to then living beyond the loss. And it's okay to do that at every step of the way. We are not relegated to a life of survival. I feel like that's just mere existence, and I'm not judging anybody if that's where you are, and it doesn't matter how long you're there. I just invite you to think about some ways that you might be able to kind of get back to your life initially, getting back up, feeling some stability beneath your feet, and then being able to live beyond the loss. So if this is making some sense, please type yes in the chat. I appreciate, again, you guys all being here. I hope I'm answering these questions for you. Let's see here. I hope that was helpful for you as well about making new friends. And I'm glad that you're experiencing that too, because that's so important. There's a lot of new energy that can come into your life. I don't know. I've met some people that have actually reminded me of Zoe. And I can share stories of her, not only with you folks, but with my new friends. And they all say the same thing. I wish I got to know her. And then in a way, they're kind of getting to know her through me. And I'm grateful for that. So let's see here. I've heard people inform the host ahead of time that you have another commitment, and so you're dropping by. Oh yeah. Okay, so I've heard people inform the host ahead of time that you have another commitment. The other commitment can be going. Yes, exactly. So Paula writes here. Yeah, if I love the way that Paula just said this, because that's a great way of just saying, hey, I'm going to show up, but I do have another commitment I have to go to. And look, if that other commitment is just you taking care of yourself, that's okay. You're not lying. You are taking care of yourself. So Paula, thank you for posting that. I really appreciate it. And I think you're absolutely right. It's so important that we take care of ourselves. And you do have a commitment to yourself, and that's okay. That's okay. And I'm glad you know about the name Zoe. Oh, you have a tattoo? That's so cool. Uh, uh, so Jeanette writes as well that I have no family left, but I did meet a new friend, and that does help me a lot. Yes, see, that's what happens. So I think as you folks start to experience more of your journey, again, obviously the ideal situation is that your loved one is still here. I wish my mom was still here. I obviously wish Zoe was still here. But life does go on. And I'm not saying that in a way to brush off the loss, but life still happens. It still comes to you in very positive ways. And you may not be able to recognize that at first. And that's okay. Grief is a very challenging process that humans are, even though we feel like we're not moving through it, we are. We're processing when we're awake, we're processing when we're sleeping, we're processing when we are emotional, we're processing when we're not emotional. I mean, but it's taxing. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like an answer? I want you to answer fog in the chat. But do you feel like when you're in the hardest parts of grief that you just can't think clearly? Because those are the moments when your brain is actually working overtime subconsciously to try to process. That's why uh, it's so draining energy wise. I remember a few months after Zoe died, I went back to work, and I was only working part time. And I'm talking, I could get 4 hours in a day. And then I felt like I just wanted to crawl into bed and sleep for the rest of the day. I was just exhausted. I'm sure there was some depression in there too, and the sadness, of course. But if that resonates with you, type in fog in the chat, because I want to know that, again, if you're feeling that way. Yeah. And so I do appreciate you, again, you folks being here. If you're just joining us, please post your question in the chat. I'd like to answer as many questions as I can while we're on the call here. And so Martin says, isn't this all just stuff to fill the void? Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, Martin, because I remember back in March, I did another TEDx talk, and it was about breakthroughs. And I remember in that talk kind of going through being able to just navigate the day of grief, because it's not linear. and it doesn't make any sense. And yet, at the same time, there's something to be said about actually taking a step forward on your journey. And one thing that I've learned is that meaning and movement are linked. And what I mean by that is that if we are trying to solve a problem, it's sometimes really harder if we're sitting there and we're just, thinking about it over and literally sitting and just thinking about it and thinking about it. But a lot of times, some form of movement can actually help you to process it faster. It helps you any type of walking. I mean, even if I'm not talking about anybody running a marathon, if you want, great. If you want to, I'm talking about if you're struggling to navigate the day to day to day, the hour by hour, whatever it may be, that a light walk actually helps. It tells your brain to keep moving forward. Like subconsciously, it's like, no, I got to keep moving forward. And so your brain starts chugging along again to try to process some of that. So the more that you can move physically, the more that will help you move mentally, if that makes sense. So let's see here. And so anything that you do to fill the void, Martin, and um, and I so when I moved from Massachusetts to Maine back in 2019, the moment I moved into my house, I felt like I had just taken a huge step back. I felt like I left Zoe behind at my house, the one that she lived in for 11 years with me, all of it. And I remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and I shared with her, I'm like, I'm struggling. All I can say in the morning when I wake up is, I'm so sorry, Zoe. I should have been a better dad. I miss you so much. And I was saying, I miss you so much. I was crying again as if I had just lost Zoe. And this was 5 years afterwards. And she asked me, she said, Eric, what would it mean for you to let Zoe go? What do you mean let Zoe go? I got really mad when she asked me that. And she's like, no, 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 work with me. What would it mean for you to let Zoe go? And I couldn't answer her, guys, because I was crying so hard because I knew what it would mean to let her go. The pain, I would feel the pain. And the only thing I could say to her was that I feel like there's a gap there. And she said, Eric, I know you can hear this, man, but the gap already exists. Oh, right. Yeah, I hear that. And now it's just like, I'm like sobbing. But she quickly said, but what could you be doing to fill that gap? And I immediately thought of the things that that I'd been doing over the previous 5 years, which was to reach out to her friends and connect with them, to coach people, to help, go and do the things that I like to do for myself, knowing that I am going to share these experiences with Zoe when we're reunited, when it's my time to pass on. Like all these things just came rolling in. And she's like, yes, yes, that's exactly how you're going to fill the gap, Eric, because you may feel like you're going to lose the connection to Zoe, but you're not going to lose the connection to Zoe, but you can lose the connection to pain. You don't have to hold on to the pain. So, by the way, if you're struggling with that right now, worried about whether you're going to forget your loved one or that you're never going to love them anymore, that love never dies. But the pain is something that we don't have to hold on to. It doesn't mean if the pain makes you feel like that's an indication that you loved your loved one, I invite you to think about the actual love that you have for them, those times that you spent with them that were so precious and dear to you. Even for Penny, sorry, not Penny, but Paula, talking about her granddaughter Zoe, 4 days. And that love is so strong, as if her granddaughter was here for 40 years. You know what I mean? It's like love does not have a time frame on it, and it does not end when you lose your loved one. that also doesn't mean that that pain gets to be the tag along forever as well, because that's not serving you, and it doesn't help. And I get it. We're processing emotion, so pain is emotion. And so what I'm saying here is that if you feel like you're just holding on to the pain as a way to hold on to feeling something for your loved one, I invite you to think about the love and the times that you had with them. And I feel like that's going to be a lot stronger because that love is going to last a lot longer than the pain. And that love's always going to be there. So I hope that helps too. Um, and so, yeah, and the brain fog is so real, guys. It's This journey is so weird. I mean, it when I was writing my book, I remember having those discussions with folks who had also lost a loved one and what they experienced. And my analogy of it was that I felt like grief was like this big, huge, tangled ball of twine. And this ball of twine, and let me try to show you what big ball of twine. And it's not rolled up like a ball of yarn. It is just like somebody has taken all of this and there's knots in it, and the knots don't necessarily get untangled very easily. And all that you have to start with your grief journey is like this one little trailer piece of string that comes out from the bottom part of that bundle of twine. And the only thing we can do to untangle it is just one little piece at a time. And eventually what you'll find out is that that ball of twine gets smaller and smaller as you're navigating your journey. Some of those knots are really difficult to navigate through. The memory, maybe some flashbacks, maybe the anniversary dates and holidays like this. These are really difficult times to get through. The first year, after you reach the end of the first year, it kind of feels like that you've accomplished something, as weird as that may sound. And I'm saying accomplished meaning that you actually made it through the first year. And what tends to happen is that as you enter the second year, you let your guard down a little bit. And I'm not suggesting that we have to be guarded, but you let your guard down a little bit so it feels like the second year is hitting you harder. And what I invite you to do, if that's the case, is to double down on taking care of yourself. You don't have to let those waves hit you over and over and over again. If we expect to feel better in a certain period of time, that's not fair to us, because there is no time frame for us to process it. Of course, I'm like anybody else. I want to snap my fingers and I want to be done with the grief. I don't want to feel it. It's been really hard these last couple of months trying to process the loss of my mom. I'm 54 years. Yes, I'm dating myself. 54 years of knowing this person, and they're gone. Zoe was here for 15 years. And while I tell my friends and family that, this experience of losing my daughter Zoe was vastly different than losing mom, my mom's condition was dementia with cancer. That's a heck of a mix, huh? But with the dementia, my mom faded away. Her ability to be present faded away over time. And so it feels like we lost my mom truly almost a couple of years ago. And so we were just being stewards of her soul, if you will, for the last 2 years. It was really challenging. So it again, vastly different experience because Zoe's loss was so sudden. And so I'm glad that you folks, I appreciate again you being here. What other questions can I answer for you? I usually get a question about, what can I do if I wake up on Christmas Day or the holidays, whether it's New Year's or Christmas or whatever you celebrate? What can I do if I feel like I want to change my mind? Okay, do it. It doesn't matter if you go back and forth 5 or 6 times throughout the day. It's okay. You can take as much time as you want. And you can make it whatever decision that you feel will serve you best that day. And I want to go back to real quick at the beginning of the call. I talked about, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. There's two forms of selfish. Okay. There's the selfish where you don't care about what anybody else thinks and you're just going to do this thing and all of that. That's one selfish. That's the selfish that's probably not that great. Then there's selfish, where you take care of yourself, and that is extremely healthy. If you take care of yourself, then you have more energy to give to your journey as you go forward. If you take care of yourself, you can be even more present for those around you who are still here, the people that matter most to you. And I know that the person that you lost mattered probably the most to you or close to it. And it's okay for you to, find ways to take care of yourself through that. Be gentle with yourself. I went through the self narrative when you're struggling can be really challenging too. Self narrative can be really challenging because you may have that narrative that that you're not going to find any other like friendships or relationships, or that maybe you didn't do something for your loved one. Maybe you should have done more. These are all normal, by the way, but I don't know if it's necessarily possible for us to change what happened. I don't think it is. We have what we can't. Again, we can't change what happened, but we can definitely change what happens next. And what happens next is that we take care of ourselves, and it's okay to do that. By you being on this live stream tonight, you're taking care of yourself, and I hope that you recognize that as being a good thing. It is. We need to do what we need to do in order to get back up and live beyond the loss of our loved ones, and even survive. So it's okay. And I appreciate the kind words on the book, Paula. It's available on Amazon if anybody is interested. It's the name of the book is A Sherpa Named Zoe. And I wrote this book, published it now 7 years ago. Wow. 2017. And I hope it helps. It's just it's my experience of navigating life and experiencing loss as I was growing up, getting to the place where I lost Zoe, and then what I did after that loss, because I never really processed those losses earlier in life. This loss of losing my daughter was so close to me that it just impacted me to the point where I'm like, I need to write about this. I need to share my experience, because I'm hoping that others will get one thing that can help them navigate their journey too. And so, again, I really appreciate that. So, and I'm glad this is helpful, Grindal. Do you have does anybody else have some other questions? I really, again, appreciate you being here. I hope this is helpful for you, because I get how challenging the holidays can be. I have a question for you folks, though, to be thinking about this. And so, Christmas is a tough holiday. Do you feel like New Year's is harder or about the same as Christmas, or easier? Does that make sense? Can you tell me in the chat what you think about, is Christmas or New Year's harder, about the same as Christmas, or easier to deal with than Christmas? So yeah, well, the chat is populating. I remember there's another Christmas too where, geez, I'm going to say it was probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was the first Christmas I was up here in Maine, and I had a tremendous sense of warmth that Christmas. Yes, I went through a time of honoring Zoe, thinking about Zoe, crying, and I probably will cry every holiday season. It just every year it gets a little better. And I don't feel like I have to cry to feel like I'm connected with Zoe. What I'm trying to say is that that one Christmas was just something that I just embraced. I got to spend time with my mom and dad. I got to see my sister. I got to see my best friends. I got to spend time with some other people that I hadn't seen in a long time. And it just felt like a really full Christmas. And I wasn't expecting that. So just know that as time goes by, your experience of Christmas may be challenging, but there will also be some times when it's not so challenging. So Paula writes here. So Grendel said that between New Year's and Christmas, it's about the same for her, and I get that too. I kind of feel the same way. There's something about somebody not being on the holidays because of just the emotions around Christmas, but now we're starting a new year, and that person isn't here as we start the new year. It almost seems a little bit weird how we're continuing on with our lives, and yet our person will never know these things that come down these relationships that we have, or the new experiences that we have, because they're not here, and that's hard to process that sometimes. So Paula writes, New Year's was harder than I expected because it's the reality of starting another year without Zoe, and her dad died 8 years ago, and I felt like New Year's just another year without him. Yeah, that's exactly, it is. That's kind of a general consensus that I'm hearing too, that starting it. So Penny writes, they're both so hard, and New Year, it's like another year without Michael isn't here. Yeah, so I kind of feel like there's the new year. So here's what I invite you to do. Well, let's see here. Roughly about this, it feels like we're leaving behind the ones who care about us. Yeah, emotional experience over the Thanksgiving weekend. It's also 1 year ago since I discovered. I appreciate that. And there's I don't know about you guys. Somebody introduced something to me a few years ago, one of my mentors, and it actually vastly changed my experience throughout the next year. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to share this with you because I think it might be helpful for you. So one thing that I like to do at the end of every year is I do a vision board. And I do it for two reasons. One, personal goals, but I also have other goals with navigating my grief that I work towards. And I'm not suggesting that this is like, sitting down and writing something out or whatever, but maybe you've got some ideas for this next coming year, things that you want to attempt to get back to. Maybe it's holidays or interests or things that, you've put aside since you lost your loved one. And I invite you to think about doing a vision board. And now that I'm talking about my vision boards, I don't know where they are. That's funny. Oh, here we go. I wanted to show you an example of a vision board here. So these are all the ones I've done over the last few years. This is a wonderful, 2018 was the first time that I did these. And so I had several goals that year. And the reason I'm sharing this, so let's see, here we go. So there's 8 tiles on here. And they're mostly personal. So this is a picture of a house that my great grandfather built, and I want to get it back into my family. And by the way, this vision board's from 2018. This was to establish a relationship, a personal relationship. This was to start doing some training. This was to actually promote my book because my book had just come out. This was to do some more speaking. This was to stand on the TEDx stage, share my story. And this was to be more involved in one of my coaching programs. And this year, this one was also to do more with Option B. And all of these, except for the house, were achieved in 2018. Now, the reason I'm sharing that with you is that most of the time when we're approaching the new year, we think about maybe one or two resolutions that we can put down. Like I want to get in better shape. I want to eat better. I want to go out and do more. What I invite you to do is to think about not necessarily a resolution, but what you want to celebrate at the end of next year. So, for as an example here, um, and again, this wasn't planned, but Paula was talking about how it's a little bit of a conflict because last year they were, really sad about losing her granddaughter Zoe, but this year they're excited about, their new grandchild that's on the way. And so, Paula, for you, as an example of this, if you put a vision board together, or even just write it down in a notebook, 8 to 10 things that you want to accomplish by the end of next year, maybe one of those goals is to shower this new grandchild with as much love and affection as you can, or see them as much as possible. Um, these goals are important because even if you don't get all of them done, you're working towards something that's enriching your life. And I have healed through a lot of my grief by doing these things. Why? Because I'm actively getting myself involved in things that not only help others, but they help me as well. That's my path. Everybody's different. These do not have to be. Maybe you do want to volunteer. Maybe you want to get back to doing something that you and your loved one used to do, but maybe it's in a different light now. Maybe there's some interests that you want to do. Maybe you want to travel. One of my other coaching clients, her name is Anne. Anne said to me last year that she wanted to travel to all 50 states. And so she spent some time putting together her vision board about how she was going to travel to those states. I don't know how many states she was able to accomplish this year, and it certainly wasn't all 50, but I know she did travel to 2 or 3 states earlier this year. And for her, that's okay. That pace is fine for her. She wasn't looking to get all 50 done in one year, but that was one of her goals. And she lost her husband many years ago, and he was typically her travel partner. So in this new normal of having to carry on without her husband, she actually found a couple of girlfriends that she could travel with and have a really good time. So I hope this can help some as you're navigating these. What do you want to accomplish by the end of 2025 that maybe honors your loved one? Maybe you want to start a foundation. Maybe you want to start a nonprofit. Maybe you want to volunteer. Maybe you want to do what I do. I don't know. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to pick up painting. Maybe you want to travel. Post in the chat. Tell me some things that are coming to mind as I'm talking about your next year that may interest you. Again, you don't have to commit to anything, but what interests you? If we connect a year from now, and I'd like to be back here a year from now, what are some things that you'd like to share with me that you'd like to be celebrating at the end of next year? Nice. Yeah, Paula writes here, you're absolutely right about writing down the goals and plans. Otherwise, you just don't realize how much you accomplish. Yeah, it's so true, Paula. I've got 6 years here, 7 years of goals. And I'm just about ready to start my 2025 goals. I've been working on them already. That's what the calendar is back here, because I've got some ideas here that I'm doing. I'm actually expanding my coaching, speaking, and training outside of the grief work here. I'm actually expanding it, and I'm helping employees to become entrepreneurs. I have wanted to do this for years, and I'm really excited about that project because it was a similar journey that I took. After I was in corporate America for almost 3.5 years after I lost Zoe, and I actually left the week before I published my book. And it's been a journey, but I want to help other employees who want to get out of the 9 to 5 grind, start a business or something that allows them to generate their own income, so that they can spend time with their loved ones and the people that matter most, so they can enjoy those moments that they can't get back. And so I'm just excited about that. That's a lot of what my goals are going to be around next year on top of this grief work. So I also have more goals to do another series of videos on this channel. Right now, I'm just doing videos that really are about survival. I'll do more about some ideas to help you get up. And then I'm going to do another series to help people to live beyond the loss. It might include travel, interest, doing different things that might spark your own interests. So let's see here. This is a great idea that we usually forget New Year's resolutions. Yeah, resolutions, by the way, are tough because I don't know. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be in a certain place in a very short period of time, which is why you typically see the gyms load up for the first couple of weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, they're back. Everyone's bailed out. And we're just expecting too much. Let's stretch the runway out a little bit. Stretch it out for the entire year. Give yourself some of that breathing room so that you're like, okay, maybe at the January, maybe you want to get in some better shape. Well, let's talk about what that is. Let's be specific. I want to gain 10 pounds of muscle and lose 10 pounds of fat, whatever it may be. Okay, great. So between January and December of next year, how achievable is that? I would say pretty much. As long as you put in some consistency there, then you're going to reach your goals. So these are really good. I'm glad you guys are starting to get some ideas here. Let's see. I took a grief educator course last spring. Oh, wow, cool. I started my grief support group at my church. I love that, Paula. How fulfilling is that for you to continue doing that work? And here's the thing I'd like to ask you guys. I want to do a thing that's called future pacing here. I want you to imagine, again, a year from now, and you have written down 5 goals. If you've accomplished 2 out of those 5, that's enough. Even if you accomplish 1, there's nothing wrong. Even if you don't accomplish anything, you've still moved them forward. You've moved towards those goals. What we normally do is that we let life run us instead of us owning our life. And this also helps with grief, because we obviously don't want grief to run our lives, and it may feel like it is, but we have the capacity to own our life and to navigate grief on our terms. So these are really good. I really appreciate these comments here. I want to finally have my husband's ashes put out in the Pacific Ocean as he wished. I've had them with me for over a year. Martin, I love that as a goal for you. And if that's the sole goal that you have for the entire of next year, so be it. If there's more, great. If there aren't, no worries. And if it doesn't happen next year, please don't beat yourself up. Please don't be discouraged. There's a time. I still have I had a dog that I put down a couple of years ago. She was only 10 years old. She was such a sweetheart, that little girl. And her name was Bean. She was a basset mix. She had these little 4-inch legs. Anyway, I still have her ashes. I have been meaning to put her ashes in Cove that I used to live in and I haven't been able to do that yet. So I think you just gave me an idea, Martin. I think I'm going to do the same thing for next year to finally put Bean's ashes where I've said I was going to put them. So thank you for that. Let's see. Penny says she's going to get a tattoo on her last words to Michael. I love you infinitely. Oh, I love that. So I'm doing that. Good veggie garden. some new crafts, and that's so good. And by the way, these are for you. These aren't for anybody else. These aren't for anybody else. And so, being able to just write these down, Penny, here's what I invite you to do. As you're thinking about your goals for next year, grab a piece of paper or a notebook and write them down. It doesn't matter how many there are. If there's one, great. If there's 10, great. If there's 20, who cares? It doesn't matter. Write them down and just keep the list in a place where you can see it every single day. A lot of times I had actually taken these things and I would pin them to my wall. I just don't have much wall space here where I'm at right now. Or I would print them out and, by the way, this is another one. This was last year's. So some of these have red check marks because some of them were in process. I didn't accomplish as much as I wanted to last year, but I also am not beating myself up because there were some other things that came along that I actually wound up accomplishing. So that was pretty good. Let's see what else we have here. I love that you feel called to doing that work. A CPA, and it is out of a comfort zone, right? I was a career IT guy, and now I'm doing this. So if you feel called to the work, it's not going to feel like work, by the way. Or if you feel called to accomplish a new goal, go for it. My buddy Mike, who's my housemate, the dude loves working with his hands. He's been down at an I would say late 1700 cemetery, cleaning the gravestones down there. The cemetery is so far out in the middle of nowhere that it's been neglected probably for the last 50 or 60 years. He's been cutting down trees. He's been setting stones. He's been cleaning the lichen and all the other stuff off these old stones. And he feels like it's a great mission. It's a great purpose-based mission. And so let's see here. I feel guilty that I didn't do enough for my loved one when he was ill. Jeanette, I appreciate you saying that in the sense that we do as much as we can do. We don't have a crystal ball. And I'm not saying that to try to just be as a matter of fact. It's just that I believe me, I've gone through some very similar emotions. I'm sure it's not easy having those thoughts that come up. We don't have any control over whether somebody is going to stay here or not. And, if we do what we think is right at the time, and there's always going to be that element of second guessing. What if we could have done something different? Maybe they would still be here. I invite you to think about ways that you can think about if the situation was reversed and, you weren't here, but your husband was, would you want him to be thinking the same thing? Especially if it was something that was out of his control. So I hope that helps some. Yeah. Folks, I want to respect your time. I really appreciate you jumping on tonight. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, please say yes in the chat. This is completely here for you folks. I hope that you find some solace in the next couple of days and in the new year. I hope that you do also spend some time and write down what you'd like to accomplish by the end of next year, because that was going to give you so much energy and direction. And you will actually honor your loved one by honoring yourself in doing those things. And it's okay to do both. So as always, I hope this was helpful. And I hope to, if you guys have any other questions, I'm going to put in my email address here. If you guys have some other questions, and feel free to message me if you have questions over the holidays. If you'd like a little extra guidance, I'll be glad to respond through email. I'm going to be taking some time for myself over the next few days to just kind of recover and get ready for 2025. And as always, again, I hope this helps. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you folks in 2025. All right. Have a good night.